The Forgotten Station. The stars looked different from Outpost Echo 7, scattered like diamonds against the endless black of space. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the distant nebula that had been her companion for 3 years. Most people would call this place the edge of nowhere, but Sarah had always found beauty in forgotten corners of the universe. Still no word from command. Marcus Webb asked, floating up through the access hatch with a wrench in one hand and oil stains decorating his coveralls. The station's artificial gravity only worked in the main sections, and Marcus spent most of his time in the engineering bays where everything drifted free. Sarah shook her head, not turning from the window. Radio silence for 6 months now. They'd probably think we followed the evacuation order like everyone else. She finally faced him, noting the concern in his weathered face. Marcus had been with her since the beginning, back when Echo 7 was just a dream on some bureaucrat's desk. "Maybe we should have," he said quietly. "Lisa's been picking up some strange signals lately. This sector isn't as empty as we thought." The intercom crackled to life, filled with Lisa Rodriguez's excited voice. "Sarah, Marcus, you need to get down here right now. I've got something big." They found Lisa hunched over her communication array, headphones pressed tight against her ears. Banks of monitors displayed wavelengths and frequency patterns that shifted like living things. Lisa had always been able to hear what others missed, finding voices in the cosmic static that most people dismissed as background noise. "What is it?" Sarah asked, settling into the chair beside her. Lisa's eyes were bright with discovery. "It's not human. Definitely not human. But it's structured, intentional. Someone out there is calling for help." She played the recording, and an alien voice filled the small communications bay. The words were incomprehensible, but the desperation was universal. Fear and urgency needed no translation. "How far?" Marcus asked, already thinking like an engineer. "Maybe 2 light years, heading this way fast. Really fast." Lisa's fingers danced across her controls, refining the signal. "They're not just moving, they're running." Sarah made the decision that would change everything. "Send a response. Let them know we're here." "Are you sure?" Marcus asked. "We don't know anything about them. They could be dangerous." "So could we," Sarah replied with a slight smile. "But if someone's in trouble, we help. That's what humans do." Lisa composed a simple mathematical sequence, a universal greeting that any spacefaring species should understand. She broadcast it on the same frequency as the distress call, then sat back to wait. They didn't wait long. The response came 12 hours later, but it wasn't what they expected. Instead of gratitude or relief, the alien transmission carried what could only be described as laughter. Harsh, mocking sounds that needed no translation. "Play it again," Sarah said, her jaw tight. The message was longer this time, accompanied by what their computers identified as visual data. Lisa's screens filled with the image of a massive alien vessel, sleek and predatory. The ship was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often were, all flowing curves and barely contained energy. "They're scanning us," Marcus said, reading the tactical display. "Full spectrum analysis." More laughter filled the communications bay. Then, to their surprise, words they could understand. The alien vessel's translation systems had analyzed their previous transmissions and constructed a basic language bridge. "Primitive humans," the voice said, dripping with contempt, "hiding in metal can at edge of nothing. Your small station cannot help the mighty Zephyrian fleet." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. She'd spent her entire career dealing with people who underestimated her, but this was different. These aliens were in trouble, running from something, and they were too proud to accept help from primitives. "Lisa, are you still getting their distress signals?" "Yes, but they're getting weaker. Whatever they're running from is gaining on them." Sarah keyed the communications array herself. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of Turan Research Outpost Echo 7. We received your distress call and stand ready to assist. What is your situation?" The response came quickly, filled with what sounded like multiple voices arguing in their native language. Finally, one voice dominated the others. "I am Commander Zexhai of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. We require no assistance from lesser species. Your primitive technology cannot comprehend our needs." Marcus snorted. "Arrogant, aren't they?" But Sarah was thinking. She'd been monitoring deep space phenomena for 3 years, and she'd noticed something troubling in the background radiation patterns, something that suggested their sector wasn't as stable as everyone believed. "Lisa, pull up the gravitational wave data from the past month. Focus on the region where their distress call originated." Lisa's fingers flew across her console, and the main display filled with complex waveforms. Sarah studied the patterns, her expression growing more concerned with each passing moment. "Marcus, remember that theoretical paper Dr. Yamamoto published before the evacuation about cascade collapse in binary star systems. The one that got him laughed out of the academy." Marcus nodded. "What about it?" "He was right." Sarah pointed to the data. "Look at these readings. A Class M star system about 3 light-years from here just went supernova, but not the way we expected. The companion star is being pulled apart, creating a chain reaction that's destabilizing everything in a 50 light-year radius. How long do we have?" Lisa asked quietly. Sarah ran the calculations twice, hoping she was wrong. 6 hours, maybe 7. The shockwave will sterilize everything in its path." They sat in silence, absorbing the implications. Echo 7 wasn't designed for evacuation. They had a small shuttle, but it couldn't reach the nearest inhabited system before the shockwave caught them. "Well," Marcus said finally, "at least we won't die alone. Those arrogant aliens are in the same boat we are." But Sarah was studying the station schematics with new eyes. Echo 7 wasn't just a research station. For 3 years, she'd been working on something that Command had dismissed as impossible, something that might, just might, save them all. "Marcus, remember Project Lighthouse?" His eyes widened. "Sarah, that's completely theoretical. We've never even tested it. We've never needed to before." She turned to Lisa. "Can you get me a secure channel to the Zephyrian fleet?" "Define secure." "They're monitoring everything we do." "Then don't hide it. Broadcast wide and clear." Sarah's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly as she activated the station-wide communication system. "Commander Zexhai, this is Dr. Chen. I know you think we're primitive, but I need you to listen carefully. You're not just running from whatever attack your worlds. You're running from a cascade stellar collapse that will destroy everything in this sector within the next 6 hours. The response was immediate and angry. "Impossible. Our science vessels would have detected such an event." "Your science vessels are probably dead," Sarah said bluntly. "The wave front is moving at nearly light speed. By the time you detect it, it's too late to run." She transmitted the gravitational wave data, knowing they'd have their own instruments to verify her claims. The silence that followed stretched for nearly an hour. When the alien commander finally responded, his voice had lost much of its arrogance. "Our readings confirm your data. Science Officer Thelmar calculates total system sterilization in 5.7 hours. Then we need to work together," Sarah said. "I might have a way to save us all, but I need your help." What could primitive humans possibly offer that Zephyrian technology cannot provide? Sarah smiled grimly. "Commander, how familiar are you with human stubbornness?" The next few hours transformed Echo 7 from a quiet research station into a hub of desperate activity. The Zephyrian fleet, 12 massive vessels carrying the survivors of 3 worlds, hung in space around the tiny human outpost like wolves circling a campfire. Marcus worked frantically in the engineering sections, rerouting power conduits and bypassing safety systems that had never been designed for what they were about to attempt. Lisa coordinated with the alien fleet, her communication array pushed beyond its limits as she translated technical specifications between human and Zephyrian systems. And Sarah stood in the station's heart, before a device that existed in violation of several laws of physics. Project Lighthouse had been her secret obsession, a theoretical answer to humanity's greatest limitation, the speed of light, the impossible rescue. The Devourer ship hung in space like a metallic cancer, its presence warping the very fabric of reality around it. Sarah had never seen anything like it, but the terror in the Zephyrian voices told her everything she needed to know. This was what had destroyed their worlds, what had sent them fleeing across the galaxy. "How many more are coming?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "Unknown," Commander Zexay replied. "The hunters travel in packs, but they rarely send more than one ship to finish wounded prey." Sarah stared at the massive vessel on her screens. Its weapons were already charging, energy signatures that dwarfed Echo 7's entire power output. In minutes, maybe less, it would reduce the station and the entire Zephyrian fleet to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. "Marcus, how long until Project Lighthouse is ready?" 20 minutes, minimum. The crystalline matrix needs time to stabilize. And if we rush it? "We don't have 20 minutes, Lisa interrupted. "That thing is targeting the Lid Zephyrian vessel. They're preparing to fire." Sarah's mind raced through possibilities, discarding options as quickly as they occurred to her. They couldn't fight. The Devourer ship outgunned them by several orders of magnitude. They couldn't run, even at maximum acceleration. They'd never escape its weapon range. And they couldn't hide. Echo 7's position was already compromised. But there was one option she hadn't considered, one desperate gamble that might buy them the time they needed. "Lisa, open a channel to the Devourer ship." "Sarah, what are you doing?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with concern. "Something stupid," she replied, then keyed the communication array. "Devourer vessel, this is Dr. Sarah Chen of Terran Outpost Echo 7. I challenge you to single combat." The response was immediate, harsh laughter that made the Zephyrian mockery seem gentle by comparison. When the laughter stopped, a voice spoke in perfect, unaccented English. "Amusing. The primitive seeks to delay the inevitable with pointless gestures. We are not your barbarian warrior cultures. We do not accept challenges from insects." "Then you're cowards," Sarah said simply, afraid to face a primitive human in fair combat. The silence that followed stretched for long seconds. When the Devourer spoke again, its voice carried a different tone, curiosity mixed with anger. "You would face a hunter of the void in single combat. You, who cannot even comprehend our technology." "I comprehend enough," Sarah lied smoothly. "I know you're scavengers, carrion feeders who prey on the weak and flee from anything that might fight back." Marcus was making frantic gestures, clearly thinking his commander had lost her mind, but Sarah kept her attention on the communication array, waiting for the response that would determine all their fates. "Very well, primitive. We accept your challenge. Single combat between champions, with the survivors of this pathetic fleet as the prize. Do you have a vessel capable of combat?" Sarah smiled grimly. "I'll use what I have. And if you lose, the fleet becomes ours. If you somehow win, we will withdraw and seek easier prey." "Agreed." The channel closed, and Marcus immediately grabbed Sarah's arm. "Have you completely lost your mind? You just challenged a ship that could vaporize us with a sneeze to single combat." "In Echo 7, Sarah said calmly. "This station has some surprises that even I didn't know about until today." She led them to a maintenance hatch that had been sealed since the station's construction. Inside, covered by 3 years of dust and neglect, sat something that made Marcus whistle in appreciation. "Is that what I think it is?" he asked. "Emergency military package," Sarah confirmed. "Standard on all deep space research stations in contested sectors." Command thought this region was too quiet to need it, but the contractors installed it anyway. The hidden armory contained enough firepower to outfit a small warship, pulse cannons, missile pods, defensive shields, and targeting systems that had been military surplus when the station was built. It wasn't much compared to what the Devourer ship carried, but it was better than nothing. "This is still suicide," Marcus said as he began activating the weapon systems. "Even with military-grade hardware, we're outgunned by a factor of 50. "Maybe," Sarah agreed. "But we're not trying to win. We're trying to buy time." She opened a channel to the Zephyrian fleet. "Commander Zexhai, I need you to do something for me. When the combat begins, I want you to run." "Impossible. The code of honor will get you all killed," Sarah interrupted. "This isn't about honor. It's about survival. Take your people and get as far from here as possible. If Project Lighthouse works, I'll signal you to return. If it doesn't, at least some of you might escape." There was a long pause before the Zephyrian commander responded. "Dr. Chen, why are you doing this? We mocked your species, dismissed your technology. Why sacrifice yourself for people who showed you no respect?" Sarah thought about that question as she strapped herself into the station's emergency combat chair. Why was she doing this? It would have been easy to say it was about proving human worth, or showing the galaxy that humanity wouldn't be dismissed. But the truth was simpler and more complex than that. "Because it's the right thing to do," she said finally. "And sometimes, that's reason enough." The Zephyrian fleet began moving away from Echo 7, their massive ships accelerating toward the edge of the system. The Devourer vessel, meanwhile, was approaching slowly, like a predator savoring the hunt. "All systems online," Marcus reported from the engineering section. "I've routed everything through the main power grid. If we're going to do this, we might as well do it properly." Translation field holding steady, Lisa added, "Project Lighthouse is at 60% charge. We need 15 more minutes." 15 minutes to hold off a ship that could destroy small planets. Sarah activated Echo 7's weapon systems, feeling the station shudder as the military hardware came online. On her tactical display, the Devourer ship was a moving mountain of destructive potential. "Beginning combat maneuvers," she announced, then fired the station's thrusters. Echo 7 had never been designed for combat flying. It was a research platform, built for stability and endurance rather than speed and agility. But Marcus had spent 3 years learning every system, every circuit, every way to squeeze extra performance from aging hardware. The station spun and dove, using its small profile and unpredictable movement to avoid the Devourer's initial weapon barrage. Beams of coherent energy sliced through space where Echo 7 had been moments before, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a city. Sarah returned fire with everything she had, pulse cannons and missile pods unleashing their fury against the massive alien vessel. Her weapons struck armor that was designed to withstand attacks from entire fleets, leaving only small scorch marks on the Devourer's hull. "We're not even scratching them," Marcus reported. "We don't need to," Sarah replied, spinning the station through another evasive maneuver. "We just need to survive." But surviving was becoming increasingly difficult. The Devourer had adjusted its targeting, and its weapons were getting closer with each shot. The station's shields flickered under near misses, and structural warnings began flashing across Sarah's displays. 8 minutes until Lighthouse is ready," Lisa called out. 8 minutes felt like an eternity. Sarah pushed Echo 7 through maneuvers that stressed the station's superstructure to its limits, always staying one step ahead of the Devourer's weapons. But she could feel the enemy ship learning her patterns, adapting to her tactics. Then disaster struck. A glancing blow from one of the Devourer's beam weapons carved through Echo 7's outer hull, venting atmosphere and knocking out several key systems. The station's artificial gravity failed, sending loose objects floating through the corridors. "Hull breach in sections 7 through 12, Marcus reported, his voice tight with strain. "I'm sealing compartments, but we've lost 30% of our maneuvering capability." Sarah gritted her teeth and continued the dance of survival, but she knew they were running out of options. The Devourer was closing in, its weapons charging for what would certainly be a killing blow. That's when she noticed something strange on her sensors. The stellar collapse wavefront, the cosmic disaster that had started this entire crisis, was accelerating beyond all predictions. Instead of arriving in hours, it would reach them in minutes. Lisa, are you seeing this? Yes, and it doesn't make sense. The wavefront is gaining energy somehow, feeding off the destroyed star systems in its path. Sarah stared at the readings, and suddenly everything clicked into place. The Devourers weren't just hunters. They were farmers. They traveled ahead of stellar collapse events, harvesting civilizations before the wavefront destroyed them. And their presence was somehow accelerating the collapse, making it more destructive than nature alone could accomplish. Marcus, can you reroute power from the weapons to Project Lighthouse? Are you insane? That thing will destroy us the moment we stop shooting back. Trust me, Sarah said, then opened a channel to the Devourer ship. Hunter of the Void, you've made a mistake. Your presence here is accelerating the stellar collapse. The wavefront will reach us in 12 minutes, not hours. The alien's response was immediate and angry. Impossible. Our calculations are wrong. Sarah interrupted. Check your sensors. The wavefront is gaining energy from your ship's dark matter drive. You've created a feedback loop that will destroy you along with us. There was a pause, then frantic activity aboard the Devourer vessel. Sarah could see them running scans, recalculating their data. When they responded, the alien's voice carried the first hint of uncertainty she'd heard. If this is true, then we must withdraw immediately. Too late, Sarah said. At your current speed, you'll never reach safe distance in time. But I can save us all. What are you proposing? Sarah took a deep breath. Help me activate Project Lighthouse. It's an experimental transportation system, an artificial wormhole that can move large objects across interstellar distances instantly. But I need your ship's power core to complete the energy matrix. You would trust us with your secret technology. I don't have a choice, and neither do you. The silence stretched for long seconds while the Devourer considered her proposal. Finally, the alien spoke again. Very well, Primitive. We will provide power linkage. But if this is a trap, it's not, Sarah said. Lisa, prepare to receive their energy signature. Marcus, integrate their power core with our systems. What followed was the most complex engineering task ever attempted. Two completely different technologies, built by species that had evolved on opposite sides of the galaxy, somehow had to work together to create something that neither could accomplish alone. The Devourer's power core was based on controlled antimatter reactions, while Echo 7's systems used fusion technology. Bridging the gap between them required improvisation and intuition rather than established science. Field generators at maximum, Marcus reported. The quantum matrix is more stable than I've ever seen it. Their power core is actually improving our resonance patterns. Translation field established. Lisa added, I've got coordinates locked for the nearest inhabited system, 60 light-years from here. Sarah looked at the main display, where Project Lighthouse was beginning to fulfill its potential. The crystalline matrix was glowing with contained energy, and space itself seemed to bend around the device. Reality was becoming malleable, ready to be shaped by human will and alien technology working in harmony. All ships, prepare for emergency translation, Sarah announced. This is going to be rough. She activated the final sequence, and Echo 7 exploded with light. The artificial wormhole tore through space-time, creating a tunnel between their current position and safety. Through the swirling vortex, Sarah could see stars that were 60 light-years away. Go, she shouted. Everyone through the portal. The Zephyrian fleet, which had been fleeing toward the edge of the system, reversed course and dove toward the artificial wormhole. One by one, the massive ships disappeared into the glowing portal, translated across space in defiance of physical law. The Devourer ship followed, its predatory hull sliding through the wormhole like a metallic serpent. As it passed through, the alien hunter transmitted a final message. We underestimated you, Primitive. Perhaps we underestimated your entire species. Sarah smiled grimly as she guided Echo 7 toward the portal. Behind them, The stellar collapse wavefront was painting the sky with deadly radiation. Ahead lay safety and the promise of a new understanding between species that had been enemies only hours before. As the station passed through the artificial wormhole, Sarah felt the universe shift around them. Space folded and twisted, and then they were elsewhere, surrounded by the familiar stars of a well-traveled trade route. Translation complete, Lisa reported. All ships accounted for. The portal is collapsing. Behind them, the wormhole sealed itself, cutting off their view of the dying star system. They had escaped with minutes to spare, carrying with them the survivors of 3 civilizations and the knowledge that cooperation could overcome even the most impossible challenges. Commander Zexay's voice came over the communication array, and for the first time, it carried respect rather than mockery. Dr. Chen, the Zephyrian people are in your debt. We mocked your species and dismissed your technology, but you saved us all. We saved each other, Sarah corrected. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. The Devourer ship had already departed, disappearing into hyperspace without another word. But Sarah suspected they would meet again someday, under better circumstances. The galaxy was a smaller place than most people realized, and word of what had happened here would spread. Humanity had proven itself capable of miracles, and the universe would never look at them the same way again. Echo 7 drifted among the stars, no longer forgotten or dismissed. The small research station had become something more, a symbol of what could be accomplished when different species worked together toward a common goal. And in the depths of space, where human ingenuity had torn a hole in reality itself, the stars continued to shine with the light of infinite possibility.